Well, boils and ghouls, it's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to welcome my good fiends of the Horror Heals podcast. Is horror good for mental wellness? But of course it is. I delight in the delicious deaths of pitiful people on the silver screen. So get ready for a hell of a good time with my new fiends, Corey and Kendall, on the Horror Heals podcast.
Hey there, welcome back to Horror Heals, the podcast where we explore the eerie, the chilling, and the downright transformative power of horror. I'm one of your hosts, Corey, along with my partner, Kendall, and today's episode is going to take us deep into the heart of storytelling, survival, and catharsis. Our guest, Mary Beth, is a filmmaker who's flipping the script on the traditional rape revenge genre. Her upcoming film takes a bold and empowering approach to one of horror's most challenging subgenres. We'll talk about how she crafts narratives that empower survivors without exploitation, and how her own journey, both as a filmmaker and as a survivor, has shaped her work. We'll also dive into why horror is such a vital outlet for processing trauma, exploring emotions, and finding community. And of course, we'll touch on her favorite horror inspirations and why she believes this genre is a crucial tool for mental wellness. So grab your popcorn, turn down those lights, and get ready for a conversation that's as thought-provoking as it is spine-tingling. Let's dive in. Mary Beth, welcome to the Horror Heals podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time of year. You know, it's like the week before Christmas. And I know that you've got a gift coming next month, right? The release of a new movie.
I know. I do have a gift coming next month. Yes, I do.
But everything's good? Like post-production all finished? You're just ready to be out there?
Yeah, we're all good. I mean, we've been working on it for a little over a year, and it's ready to go finally and unleash onto the world. So, yep, everything's good. I know. It's been like my entire world for a year, so I'm very happy and excited.
What can you tell us about it? Can you set the stage?
Yeah, so it's an inversion on the rape revenge tale. We don't show any sexual assault in this as kind of like a disclaimer for people. And it's about a teenager who goes to a party with her friends with a bunch of older frat boys. The frat boys drug them, assault them, and set them out, hunt them. And one of the girls comes across a couple who are not what they seem, and the tables get turned, and it becomes a hunt for the frat boys.
Okay, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
A little terrifying too.
It's a horror movie, so yeah, it's a little terrifying. It's a little terrifying, but I think because the release date is January 21st, which is right after the inauguration, I feel it's going to be a nice little rage-filled salve for people who maybe are feeling some anger and some feelings about
very good timing.
The new president. Yeah.
And, you know, sort of like the genre is kind of like ebb and flow, and we haven't really seen many of the rape revenge type flicks in a while. So it'd be interesting to see your take on one.
Yeah, and Revenge, obviously. Coralie Farge's Revenge, her first movie before The Substance, is like, I mean, this movie is like everything to me. I've been obsessed with it for years. It came out. And there have been a couple, like MFA by Natalia Leigh, Rose Plays Julie, which was co-directed, and Violation, but there haven't been that many. Like there have been some really good ones. Blink Twice, actually, from this year, Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut. If you haven't seen it, you can stomach the negatives that these are. Definitely watch it because it's incredible, and about a Black woman's experience with this, which you don't really get. But again, like they're very few and far between. So it's exciting to be into this little recent rape revenge and canon.
I've got to be in the right headspace to watch one of those, but you know, you get there, you figure out what you're gonna.
Actually, like you can kind of like predict. Usually, like I want to have like surprises in the movie. I also want to prepare people and like let them know, like, you know, it is a rape revenge movie, but it's not going to be the exploitative kind that is from the past. Is like kind of the big thing for me. It's like, yes, it is rape revenge and it is not easy to watch, but it is not going to be like I Spit on Your Grave or the original Last House on the Left. those obviously have important canon, but it's very different approach than those movies, to say the least. At least that was our hope.
Awesome. Good. We've sort of hinted at it already, but how do you feel about our thesis of horror and horror culture being good for mental wellness?
Yeah, absolutely. Like even further, because movie and all my research and a lot of my focus on particularly representations of sexual assault in horror have been all about how it can be healing, especially for myself as a sexual assault survivor who has been kind of motivated by my experiences and kind of how horror has literally helped me heal, both between my PTSD and also my OCD, which is like a whole other thing. How horror has been like a crucial piece for me, and watching it, writing about it, and now creating it in parsing through my feelings and also like understanding them. And it's just like horror really is crucial for, I think, so many of us in understanding that. And I could not agree more about how horror has helped me understand my experiences and parse them and like help me heal even a little bit. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you touched on something really important, and that's the community aspect. Like, we're trying to build this community. You started going to horror conventions recently, and it's like, this is what horror people do. Instead of taking their family to Disney World, this is like their Disney World.
No, it's true. Like, there's kids dressed up, like so excited. Like, it's so cool. And like, I don't really care what you're feeling about kids in horror. Like, let parents make the decision, because it's like so cool to see these kids so excited. Like, it's neat. It is like a Disney. It is like their Disney World, and it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is the thing that people get excited about and start talking about months ahead of time. And I don't know if you're have time to do any like the Facebook groups and stuff like that, but just like, people that they're sharing the guest announcements and they're sharing this and that, and there's just like dozens and dozens of comments. One convention was asking, who do you want to see at our shows next year? And it was like 1,100 replies.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. And like, they're so excited when people get there and like they dress up and bring things for people to sign. And like, it's just like, it's like a pilgrimage for a lot of people, especially to see these celebs that played characters that are important to people and like meant much to people. It's cool. Like, and I've taught, like, in my journalism life, have talked to so many people who talk about the community of horror, how surprised they are. Like, if they're not fans themselves, they're so surprised by the way they act and the way that people engage with horror especially when they go to cons. People don't expect it. They think we're all a bunch of weirdos who are like freaky freaks, who are like freaky goths, who are like spider webs and blood. But really, we're all just a bunch of people who love movies and just want to talk about it.
That's true. And I've said this a few times on this podcast, but my parents, probably to the public, didn't seem like people that would have allowed me to watch films that I watched. But for them, they enjoyed them and they wanted it to be normal for me. They didn't want me to be frightened. And that was their way of saying a lot of this is make believe.
Yeah, but it is. I feel like if you approach it the right way with your kids, you're like, this is all fake, but like, we can pause it if you want, and it doesn't exist outside of this world. And it's like a really safe way to experience fear, because you can stop it and like pause it, rewind it, whatever. That's so cool that your parents did
really
that. I love that.
Friends of mine have said this to me years ago, like, oh, I can't believe, because they knew my parents, right? They're like, can't believe they would let you. I'm like, well, hold on. First of all, these people are not here to defend themselves, and secondly, I just knew their approach and it was very transparent to me. So there was no problem.
Yeah. That's like my family. Like, you seem like you're such a nice girl. Why would you watch horror? I'm like, it doesn't make me any worse. It doesn't make me a bad person. Like, my grandparents, who are not, I love them dearly, but they're not horror people, and they just get so confused by it. They're like, people are going to think you're a freak. I'm like, but like, that's their problem, not mine. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like not my problem if that's what they think of me, I like horror. Like, if that's what you decide to judge me on, then like, that's personal.
Right. They could equally judge me on the fact that I can watch 10 minutes of a rom-com and I'm like, that's enough. You know what I mean? It's just not my thing. I'd much rather read something than watch that.
And like, judge me for watching Bravo. Judge me for liking my like terrible trash reels.
Yes.
It's funny that you mentioned your grandparents, because I was thinking about this as Kendall was speaking. My grandpa was a big movie guy. He recorded VHS of everything. So he, introduced me to the Universal stuff. I think Abbott and Costello was like the first Like, oh,
Oh.
let's try, let's dip our toes in the water. And then like, Frankenstein and the Wolfman and all those fun things.
That's amazing.
So we talked to Lynn Griffin for an episode to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Black Christmas. And I was already thinking about this, like,
that's so cool
idea for a script where it would be, because I talk about the grandparents using my father's parents a lot. Kendall never got to meet them, but I think he feels like he knows them because I talk about them all the time. They were just the sweetest people. And so sort of it as an homage, I'm writing the screenplay about satanic grandparents.
Oh my God. Wait, that's incredible. Have you seen anything for Jackson? Not exactly the same. I love that because like we don't get enough like older characters being crazy that shit. I feel like it's like that ageism stuff and having that kind of thing is so cool.
So because Lynn was like, I've always played the victim. I want to be the killer, I want to be the killer grandma.
Yeah.
And she, mentioned a couple of things. I'm like, Lynn, if you want to collaborate on this, like totally will. So I'm like, I got an outline put together and I want Kendall to go through it with a fine-tooth comb before I send it to her. A friend that I really trust, I had her read the outline and she's not a horror person. She's like, this is fucking insane.
Hell yeah. I love that when you're like, yes, you get it. You understand what them to get at here.
About your mental state right now. I'm like, perfect. That is exactly the feedbacks that I want.
Great. That's exactly what I want. Yeah. Thank
you. So there are two horror websites that I'm on, if not daily, like every other day. And Dread Central is one of them, of course. So how did you decide to focus on horror journalism? Because I'm an old school journalist and, love it.
So I have wanted to be a writer since I was a child. Like writing has been my thing. I wanted to, like, I used to do this thing when I was a kid where I made my own newspaper called the Information Post. And like, I would like write news stories for my own little paper and I would give parents. And like, I always wanted to be a journalist. I thought it would be the coolest thing ever. And it was just like, I liked writing creatively, but I think I really loved was like being able to dive. Like, I didn't know what horror journalism was, but like for me, journalism was so cool. And I did like school newspaper in high school. I ran our school newspaper and I was always like the movie kid and I was always into movies. And in college, I was kind of like, what is even the point of this? Like, what is the extension? Like, how does this go? When I was confronted with the reality of, oh, you have to get a job and grow up. But I took a college class. It was a horror movie class, and I was really excited to take this. I was like the one class I wanted to take in college. I was so excited for it, and I took it, and it changed my life because I realized, oh, people like write about horror academically and from like a really analytical perspective, and I could. That kind of started the melding of the two things that I loved, writing and horror. And so when I graduated, I just started doing freelance writing. It's like small stuff, and it kind of, I built up a basis of people I wrote for a while. I mean, I always had a full-time job doing other stuff because, as we all know, freelancing writing is impossible to do. It's like very hard to do full-time. So I was working full-time jobs and at night writing news, whatever, pitching. And I've been doing it for almost a decade. And I was working as an editor for small sites, like all unpaid, but I loved it because it was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be working with writers. I wanted to be writing, going to festivals and things. And I was lucky enough. I was at a job I really did not like what the fuck do I do? And I was lucky enough to be told there was a job at Dread Central opening up. And I applied and interviewed, and it started as one small job and kind of evolved into what my job is today. And yeah, it was just like a lot of busting my ass for a long time and luck and networking. Yeah, it's been something I've been doing for a long time, and getting to do it for my full-time job now is like the dream come true.
I love,
to be honest.
Our stories have a lot of parallels. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I just love that there are true dedicated journalists still out there, because we get the media, the mainstream media, there's such a negative connotation, that really didn't, it existed, but not to the degree it does today. When I was a newspaper editor back in the 90s and 2000s, It's just like, now I'm a lifelong journalist. I want to find a way to do that. Once the crash happened in 2008 with print journalism, that was like my, the sign to get out. So then, kind of started getting into marketing, but still, freelanced, because I just, you can't, that's the thing you love, you have to find a way to keep doing it.
Yeah. And like, unfortunately, it's like the only way a lot of us can write for certain outlets. Cause I mean, they have so many teams are so small now, or if they don't even rely on that team, or if they don't really have a full team, it's hard. I run a team myself. It's hard out there, like, right, with budgets and oversaturation and financial goals and all that stuff. It's hard. Like, especially you work with print. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, that's a whole other terrifying print that, like, I'm glad that
that would be really extra scary right now. And there are some great print horror publications that,
especially, like, I can imagine like what they have, like, on top of online having to worry about print. Their constant struggle to keep providing a really cool print.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I've seen that, firsthand when I was features editor for a daily paper, and we wanted to start like a weekly, like, giveaway entertainment, like music sort of thing that would be completely separate, from that, which meant like advertising, all that kind of stuff, and it's got to sustain itself. But we did it for 5 years. I was pleased with that. That's a good run.
Dang.
Yeah, but
that is a good run for print.
Yeah, the struggle is real. For sure.
We just want to write about what we love.
Exactly. Are there a couple of pieces that you've written this year that really stand out?
Oh god, that's such a good question. And my brain is like so empty right now. Like at the end of the year of just like everything. I mean, I think there's a couple of reviews I'm really proud of. It's hard as an editor, but you don't write as much as an editor the editor. And I'm okay with that. It's sad sometimes. I'm like, I miss writing as much, but I also like love editing other people's work. I think I'm writing a book right now, so a lot of my writing this year has been in the book that hasn't been out yet. So some of my favorite writing isn't out in the world yet, because that's been where I've been focusing a lot of my writing energy.
Very cool. Since I don't know where you get the time. You're directing a movie, you're writing a book.
I know. I don't sleep a lot is kind of the problem.
Oh my.
Sleep schedule is a little fuzzy, but that's okay.
So when you attend cons, like horror cons specifically, are you going as a fan, as a journalist, as a filmmaker, all of the above?
Yeah, so this year was my first year going to cons, like I said, and I was going as a filmmaker. So I was a horror hound, and that's where Bystanders had its world premiere. And I was like, oh, this is a festival and a convention. So it was my first time getting to go to a con, and I was excited because like horror hound's a pretty big deal. And a lot of people that worked on my movie have been before, and so they were excited for me to experience it. And it was a blast. I mean, like, everyone was just so friendly. I like saw Robert Englund at a bar and like sat next to him, and like that was weird and cool and just like random. And just like the energy was so happy. I was like, oh, it's going to be so crowded, full of people. I'm going to be annoyed. It's going to be, And then I was like, just kidding. This is actually lovely. Like, why did I come in with that thought of like, too many people? Because between like the booths and people being able to talk about the films, but then also just seeing everyone so excited, I was glad I was attending as a filmmaker, because I didn't have to like put on a journalism hat, like a critic's hat. I kind of just take it all in as another person attending, and it was amazing. I loved it, and I want to go to more because it was such a cool vibe. It was such an exciting vibe, very energetic.
Totally, because we've had a few people in our lives when we were talking about this podcast that aren't super into horror. I would get comments like, I would have thought the opposite. I would have thought horror would be bad for mental wellness. Like, are you going to be able to get enough guests for this? Are there enough people who have this experience? Like, in the back of my mind, just like laughing. If you've ever been to a horror convention, then you would know exactly why. We will never have a shortage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like everyone was looking so much for community, especially with everything that's happening.
Right.
So I feel like this is my first year. I went to cons for the first time this year. I've been to festivals, but I haven't gone to cons. And they really are such a community space for people. I didn't realize how people travel for, I don't know, like that is such a community space. And I feel like so many people are just trying to give others that, which is nice. It is nice because we need that now.
Haven't figured out which ones we're going to attend next year. We're kind of getting to where I think we want to like then. There just to kind of for the podcast and everything. So that will be a different experience to try. Are you putting together a list of ones that you want to hit in 2025?
I need to start. I need to figure out festivals versus cons now. I'm like, oh, there's too many things. There's too many options, and there is so little money to figure out how to go and stay and everything.
Yeah, keep us in the loop on that, because you being on the East Coast as well, there are some good East Coast cons. So if you're going to be there, it'd be awesome to meet up in person for sure.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah, there's actually one in Maryland that I've never gone to. That's
the Monster Mania one yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Is that the one in New Jersey? Jersey?
It's the same organization. They just moved to Baltimore this year. I didn't go to that one, but saw some really great feedback. It sounds like the venue is perfect. It's a father and two sons that put these cons on. We've talked about them several times in the podcast. They're great, do a really good job, and they're doing it for the fans. I mean, he started this as like a tribute to his father, because they used to go to like see horror double features when he was a kid. So it's like, you get all the warm and fuzzies, you know?
I love that. And if it's in Baltimore, it's even easier to get to, because not far from Baltimore. Okay, well, that one is going to have to be on my list, purely because I don't have to travel very far for that one. That's easy. That's an easy one to get to.
And totally worth going. Yeah, for sure.
You can go home in the evening.
Absolutely.
So, Mary Beth, final question that we ask every guest on the Horror Heals podcast is, who is your favorite final person in a horror movie?
It's a tough one.
Because there's two that I love, but I think 'tis the season. I think I'm going to have to go with Black Christmas with Jess, Olivia. I mean, like, and we can all argue about the ending, but her forever, because she's, I think, the prototypical final girl. She is a final girl who has sex because she's getting an abortion. So it's so funny. The final girl becomes this like pure kind of virginal character, because that's, I mean, again, it's not like, to me, Black Christmas, like the first slasher, between her, like her hilarious acting and some parts of that, love her. She's the best. And I have her sweater that I've been wearing all season. She's one of my favorite articles I also ever wrote for Dread Central was about her, and about, it was after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and I wrote about Black Christmas and the, like, horror is political, and we can't, like, and all that stuff. She's my pick.
That's great, because that's definitely our favorite Christmas themed horror movie for sure. We watch it every year, and we were having a Black Christmas party with our cousins until they moved out of the country. So introduced them to that.
I love Black Christmas.
It's so good. It's so good. Yes, that's a great pick for sure.
Thank
awesome. We'll definitely have to stay in touch. Loving your vibe. Appreciate that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like you guys too.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Horror Heals. Mary Beth, who is also the editor-in-chief at Dread Central, one of our favorite horror websites, has a story that's such a powerful reminder of why horror is more than just a genre. It's a space for reflection, growth, and, well, sometimes even healing. Her film is coming out in about a week, and we have no doubt it's going to resonate deeply with audiences who crave horror that challenges, empowers, and inspires. If you're someone who's ever found solace in horror, Mary Beth's journey proves you're not alone, and that our shared love of the macabre is more than just fandom, it's community. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of how horror can turn pain into power. Remember, whether it's through films, conventions, or conversations like these, there's always a way to find connection and healing in the shadows. Until next time, stay spooky, and remember, when someone asks, is horror good for mental wellness? You tell them, of course it is. The Horror Heals podcast is produced and presented by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage, LLC.